Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Red Letter, Yellow Letter podcast, a weekly anarchist, voluntary, agorist variety podcast where we talk about and philosophize the morals and ethics of everything going on in the world today, tomorrow, and in the future. I'm your host, The Nev, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host, fellow anarchist, Harley. Harley, how are you today?
Today I kind of just feel like atomic wedging 99% of journalists out there, to be honest.
Yeah, no, we have been talking about this over the weekend as to what the subject material and what the topic of discussion
over the
was
weekend,
gonna
as
be.
in 5 minutes ago,
As
because
in
we're
5 minutes.
procrastinating.
No, don't. You see that you've given it away. You've given it away to the crowd.
But look at the good content we come up with in such a short amount of time.
Yes, we do. I mean, it's
okay.
not.
Okay, there's a silver lining to this.
Mhm.
You're in good hands, people.
Yeah, yeah. I'm wearing a hat today because, as you can see, I'm having a very bad hair day, so covering it up. And we have the new logos. We've got the new show logos. So as you're looking at this, your top right and bottom left, you can see the new logos, which were done by a fan of the show. So yeah, we'll be rocking those, and we'll talk a little bit about some new show merch that we've got that we're going to be rocking out at the end of the show. But
yeah, and for those who can't see it, because maybe you're listening on Spotify, the new logo should actually be on Spotify too, or whatever outlet you use to listen to your podcast. That should all be updated. So yeah, it's everywhere now. So hopefully you can see it. It looks a lot more
cooler,
polished and neat. I think it's pretty neat.
Yeah,
I dig it a lot.
It looks a lot cooler because I threw together the original logo using Microsoft Paint. So
it's better than nothing.
Yeah, it looks a damn sight more professional than what I cobbled together when we were pulling this together and doing all of the various different bits and pieces. I'm good when it comes to the graphics on OBS, but a lot of the time I'm throwing stuff together at the last minute, as opposed to what you see before you. If you're watching on YouTube, that is the whole backgrounds and the borders and the windows that because we've got these lovely yellow lightsaberish windows that I kind of stole from my other podcast. So yeah, well, but the visuals will kind of they'll evolve over time. But
when I did my first podcast, actually, I didn't even really have an official logo because I also changed the name of it like 3 or 4 times. I was just not happy with anything, and I would think of something slightly better and just change it to that. And it got to the point where somebody actually reached out and was like, here's a damn logo. just gave me one to just hold the place. I'm like, yay, this is much better than because literally before that, it was just the general background and font that Anchor provides if you don't have a logo. And so I kept trying to switch it up because I kept changing the names. I just didn't really catch up with it. So he literally came up and was like, here's a general logo. So then I was using that for a while because I didn't even try very hard. I wasn't happy with the name, so it was like, why bother trying,
Yeah, no, I mean, I created the scene that people can see on the screen if they're watching it in YouTube is just something I kind of put together over a couple of hours on OBS, and the reason why it's set the way it is with me in my window and you in your window, it is more conducive for one recording, and it's a long form conversation. I do know other podcasts and other shows that and we may it's something that we may do in the future, a bit like what Matt Christiansen does with his co-host, where sometimes they'll put both of themselves one on top of the other to the left or to the right side of the screen, and then the dead air, the space, is where they bring up the articles that they talk about. Because when they do when they do their show, their current events show, they'll have a rundown of some articles or maybe some news topics that have been in the media, whether it's written media or video media or audio media, and then they'll have a discussion about what is on the screen. So when people are watching their show, they can physically see next to them what it is, and that's something that we may come to. But I'm I like the one scene fits all for us for for more of a long form discussion, which is what we tend to have, and what we're going to be talking about today is the media, just in general. The news, media, current events, current affairs, and how problematic some of it is, and how it creates and causes issues for some, maybe not so much for others. But we can't generally look at it and go, there are no issues and there are no problems with the media, whether it's new media or legacy media, or alternative media. There's problems with all of it, and we're going to talk about it, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
So
how hard they deserve to get atomic wedgied, maybe swirlied even. I'm going to steal.
Oh, you've gone all quiet all of a sudden.
I've gone quiet.
Yeah, you've gone quiet, which is very strange. I don't know why you've gone quiet, but all of a sudden you've gone quiet on me.
You can't hear me, or?
Oh yeah, no, I can hear you. It's just you've gone awfully quiet all of a sudden.
Oh, I don't know.
Your voice, it's like you're talking in a lower register than you were when we first started. Is that because you're building up to something, is it?
No, it's because I'm tired. I was up late. The dogs were freaking barking at the damn javelina, trying to bust in my shed. They're clinging, which is a metal shed. So they're freaking banging on these metal doors, trying to get in, clunking around, because javelina aren't exactly graceful creatures. They're essentially boulders on little tiny piddly legs. So they're just bonk, bonk, and my dog's flipping out.
Oh, right. Okay.
30 in the morning. Yeah, I'm tired. Higher octave now.
Okay. Right. Let's get on with the show. You were talking about something that you'd seen earlier on. Well, I spoke to you about how.
You usually take it off from here, and then I usually give input.
Okay. Well, one of the.
I've got some examples, but I don't know. I feel like I do better when you start saying stuff, and then
you come in. Okay, yep, no, that's not a problem. Well, so one of the things, the first thing that I think I mentioned to you that I did want to discuss was the duplicitous nature that we seem to find ourselves coming across with a hell of a lot more frequency now than we used to in the media, in the legacy, to be more specific, in the legacy media. Now, what I used to do, and I think most people that didn't really see themselves as left or right tended to do. I used to do this in the UK all the time. Is you would see something in the news, whether you saw it on the TV or whether you heard it on the radio or whether you read it in a newspaper. Very rare for me reading it in a newspaper, because I stopped reading. I stopped reading newspapers in 2005. Does anybody still
read actual physical newspapers anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I used to read the last newspaper. The last newspaper that I read was 2005.
Yeah, that's like, what? Like, does anybody anymore? Or is that like a lost art?
No, I mean, I imagine there are some people that still read newspapers. I just know that I stopped reading newspapers in 2005. I stopped, just stopped. But what I used to do back during the 2000s, and even earlier on in the last decade, was I would hear a story, or I would hear or read an article, whether it was online or on social media, and then I would go and source it myself. So if I heard a snippet of news, such and such has done something in such and such a country and it's had this effect, I'd be like, "Oh, that sounds like something current eventy. I'd like to check up on that." And then what I would do is I would look at both a source of the news on the left and one on the right, and then I would then kind of like filter out what the left wing bias was, and I would filter out what so that I could get to the crux of it, so that I could figure out what's the facts, not what's being embellished on, from an opinion point of view, kind of try and scrub it from all type of opinionated language, so that I could get to the crux of what the facts of the story is, and
What
then I'd be
are
like,
the
oh,
common denominators everywhere? Where
yeah,
does it all align? So you know at least that much is more than likely to be
yeah,
true.
exactly. So I would try and remove the ambiguity from the story, so that I could get to the nuts and guts of the facts. And I'm finding that increasingly difficult, almost impossible these days, because it almost like there has now been a split. There is now a tear between left-wing media and right-wing media, whether it's legacy media, or whether it's new media, or whether it's alternative media. There is now a complete split down the middle, and the middle is basically you go left, they report on stories they want to report on, and
Mhm.
to the right of the middle, the right report on stories that they want to report on. And I'm stuck because I'm looking at a story that is only being reported by the right, and
Mhm.
I've got nothing on the left because they're flat out refusing to cover said story or said
Right.
article. And it's like, how do I find? I'm finding it near on impossible to find the medium, the happy medium, because there's no doubt in my mind that when a story was reported on by both sides, some things would be added to the story by the left or removed. And likewise on the right, they would either add things or they would remove things, which is why I liked to source a news article or a current affairs article from both sides, so that I could meld the two together, rip out all of the junk, and I'd know exactly what, I'm listening to. Unfortunately, I can't seem to. I'm really, really struggling to find that at the moment. Not so much just because one side is reporting and the other side isn't. Is I don't know what the sources are either, because a lot of news, and both the left and the right are doing this, is they constantly keep citing anonymous sources. And
Mhm.
I don't know whether or not I should believe said anonymous sources. Um, and a perfect example of that was was an article, and this article was alluded to me when I was watching the one of Tim Pool's podcasts. I don't know if it's one of his set ones, his pre-recorded ones, or a snippet from one of his IRLs. But he was talking about how a media outlet reported that there were suspected photographs of Trump doing something in an elevator, and no one's seen the photographs. No one knows if the photographs are real, and no one knows what he did. But it was reported, and it's like, so there's
Okay.
nothing. So that is literally nothing. But that was being reported as news by a media outlet, and I'm like, what? You could literally say that about any person in any context, in any situation, in any location in the world, and simply say, but we don't know what it is. And it's like, you can't do that. There's no way to fact check or look at something like that. And we're now in this, and there didn't used to be. You go back to the 2000s, and there didn't used to be fact checkers, because people would just simply decide for themselves, or like me, they would look at the news and they would read that news story from multiple different stories, so that they could, okay, so they're all reporting that this was a man that did it, so I can take that, so I know that it's a man that did it, and they've all got the location right, and they've all got the date right, and they've all got the time right, and they've all got the action correct. So I knew that a man did something at this location at this time, and this was his action. And they've all reported that. So I don't need to, review the source material to know that every single side is reporting that. So at least that is factually accurate. And then they start throwing in all of the, all of their other bits and pieces. I'm finding it increasingly hard to do that now. because there are fact-checking organizations that are themselves kind of like becoming part of the news. So somebody will say something and a fact-checking organization will say whether it's true or false. And I'm now having to check them checking the news because I don't know if what they're doing is correct. And it's getting increasingly frustrating to actually find out what does or does not happen, or what is or is not true, because of the duplicitous nature of news being reported now. It's so difficult, and add to that lots and lots of tiny little bits. A good example would be a New York Times. I mean, and before anybody says, "Oh, you're reading the New York Times," it's like, well, yeah, like I just said, if I hear something or see something in the news, I need to check the sources. So, I heard about a story in the New York Times, and it's like, if I'm going to be critical of something, or want to be critical of something, then I need to know what they've written. So it was a New York Times article, and the headline was something along the lines of, "No, there is no widespread voter fraud in the elections." And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so there's your headline. You're saying, no, there isn't. And then the article proceeded that the journalist, the person, I'm just going to refer to it as the person writing the article, then started to highlight the fraud that had occurred in multiple different states. And I'm thinking to myself, your headline's saying that there is no fraud, but you're highlighting fraud.
Technically, they're saying it's not widespread.
Yeah, and this,
but a little bit is okay, but it's not technically widespread.
Yeah, and after reading that, then I was going through my usual YouTube videos, and that was when I came across Viva Five Log. And he actually discussed the article and how the language within the article obfuscates what the actual truth is. The use of the word widespread. Because the article itself, and when people say, "Oh, there is no widespread," they're deliberately putting the word widespread in, because it would be factually incorrect to say there was no fraud during the election, because there is always going to be fraud in an election. It's one of the arguments that we make as to why voting is not the best method of managing a society. Is voting isn't accurate, whether it's because of fraud, or whether it's because of mistakes, or whether it's because of errors. That there are always going to be errors, there's always going to be fraud, and there's always going to be mistakes. Now, sometimes those mistakes, errors, and frauds can cause problems, more problems than the people that believe in it and trust that method. But what I'm specifically finding with the current election is you've got the right saying there are all of these issues, and these issues need to be resolved through investigation and through committees and through all, so even more levels of bureaucracy and even more levels of obfuscation. And then you've got the other side saying, nope, there's no mistakes, there's no frauds, there's no nothing. Leave it alone. There's nothing we need to do. And here's me thinking, hang on a minute. 4 years ago, it was completely the other way. The left was saying it's wrong. There's mistakes. There's fraud. There's intervening from foreign governments, and it must be investigated. And guess what? It was for 3 years. And then you had the right saying, "Oh, it's all rubbish. It's a hoax. There's nothing to see here." And then after the investigation, they were then able to say, "You've had your investigation. You were wrong. There was no interference in the election. Trump did win fair and square." But that then still didn't stop the left from doing it. So now the tables have completely turned. The duplicity is even worse. Whereas, during those 3 years, you had both sides reporting on it, and you would get a left and a right slant. And now it's completely the other way. And it's so frustrating. And I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but it's definitely, it's making it difficult for me to keep up with current affairs, because I don't know which sources which news media sources to trust, especially when a news article says, sources who wish to remain anonymous, because 10, 15 years ago, that would be good enough for me. Seriously, 10, 15 years ago, that would be good enough for me. But when it's one side reporting on a story that nobody else covers, and they say anonymous sources, it's like, well, that doesn't mean any, because the same anonymous sources aren't reporting the news to other news media outlets. They're reporting it to one, and then there's a circle jerk. So
it's essentially just trust me, bro. Just trust me.
Yeah,
that's all.
And it's like so three unknown sources report a story. Sorry, say they confirm a story to the Atlantic, and then MSNBC picks up what the Atlantic says. CNN picks up what MSNBC picks up. CBS picks up what CNN picks up. And then it's like, oh, well, it must be true because 4 media outlets are reporting on something. And it's like, no, they're not. Only one.
I've literally seen like news sources like essentially copy and paste each other's articles and just slap them on as if it was their own. I have like seen, and I've seen a lot of small articles do that with bigger articles, or articles. I've seen small time journalist sites do that with the articles and take them from bigger ones, slap it on like it's their own, and just get spread around. Because especially if there isn't a whole ton of information, they will just straight up copy and paste it and market it on their own website. And then you're just getting the same information over and over and over again. So then people are doing that. Oh, well, this website said it, and this website said, yeah, because they literally took the same fucking article and put it on. Like, that doesn't confirm anything. That's just literally just saying what was already said without further investigation. And I feel like it's just a big hot mess of different factors. You think about it, we're now in an age where just about everybody has the entire history of the world as we know it right in the palm of our hands. It takes 5 seconds for us to confirm or debunk something. Most people don't do it. Most people don't even read the damn articles. They'll just see that clickbaity title that fits their narrative, whether or not it's true, whether or not it's even satire. Half the time they don't even check before they're sharing it as truth, going, oh my God, look, I told you this would happen. See, look, I told you this would, no, it's fake. It's fucking fake. And there have been tons of times in my life, even, decade ago when I first, little over a decade ago when I first started really heavily using the internet, there were plenty of times I would be on these different forums and people start sharing stuff. And I'm like, did you actually read the fucking article? Did you actually click it and read what it said? And people do that with satire all the time. I've legit seen people even sharing shit from The Onion, or, just obvious, maybe not as famous as The Onion, but still satire accounts where all you have to do is click it and boom, the header says satire news, but they didn't bother to click it. So they're sharing it going, oh my God, what's wrong with people? And it's like, what's wrong with people is you're not fact checking. You're not even clicking the article before you're fucking checking it. And you're sharing it as if it's true.
Yeah.
So, not everybody does fact check, but for those who do, it's all out there. So now they have to push certain narratives in order to get people convinced of whatever whatever the hell they're trying to spread is the truth. And like you said, oftentimes one side is going to report something if it fits the narrative. The other side will not. An excellent example is actually the Duncan Lump case. When Breonna Taylor was murdered, it was everywhere, absolutely everywhere. Obviously, we had all these riots. Every person, every libertarian I knew, every Republican I knew, every Democrat I knew, or just progressive, whoever, they all knew it. And they were all up in arms about it, which is excellent. But it was only the libertarians and the anarchists who knew anything about Duncan Lump. And so when I'd ask, who here has heard of Duncan Lump? All progressives were like, oh no, I've never heard that name. And I'm just like, because you're not looking at news sources that are reporting everything. You are looking at news sources that are only reporting what you want to hear. And what you want to hear is this minority woman was murdered by cops because cops are racist, etc. You're not hearing this young white man was murdered by cops because of red flag laws. He didn't actually do anything illegal. He wasn't actually a threat. He just had a lot of guns, but he was still murdered in his sleep. Never mind, he had a pregnant girlfriend with him there too. They hadn't heard any of it because that is not the progressive narrative. The progressive narrative doesn't care about red flag laws. They don't like people who own tons of guns. They don't like white men. Oftentimes, they flat out say F white men all the damn time. So they just heard nothing. It was not reported on that side. And when this first happened, I was looking into it. I hardly found anything in general on it. I was hearing from libertarians and word of mouth, etc., like on Twitter and stuff, saying, here's what's going on. He was murdered in his sleep by cops. It was a no-knock rave, etc. But at the time when I first looked it up, there were like 2 news sources. One was the local news, and it literally passed it off as there was a confrontation, and so he was shot. And that was it. That was it. And so the more people spoke up about it, the more information was, found and everything. But I mean, they still try to brush it under the rug, threatening Duncan Lump. I believe they threatened Duncan Lump's parents with jail time for protesting his death and been pushing there be a more thorough investigation, demanding to see the footage, etc. They were threatened with jail time. But all of that is not going to be told by the mainstream media because the mainstream media typically tends to be left leaning, and that does not fit the left narrative at all.
Yeah, no, I used to refer to them as mainstream media. I refer more to them now as the legacy media because they're old. But that adds to the.
Well, I'm not just saying the older ones. I'm saying even the current ones that are more like Huffington Post, or they're more opinion based in general. Yeah. Or even just all these little indie ones, because the indie ones do the same thing.
Yeah, they want the clicks. Yeah. They need the ad revenue.
All bases with that.
They want the ad revenue just as much. But yes, the clicky stories, the picking and the choosing of the the picking and the choosing of the stories. That happens with that really does happen with such increasing frequency these days. It's like they almost you could almost argue that they take their lead, the ones that are in the middle. So you've got your legacy media, your NBC, your ABC, your CBS, your CNN, your Fox News. So you've got your big 5, and they report on something. People see specific news articles getting the traction, and then in comes your BuzzFeed, your Huffington Post, your Real Clear Politics, your Daily Wires, your Breitbarts with, okay, this is a story that's clicky and it's clickbaitable, and I mean, some probably are more guilty than others, and that which is a fair assessment. Some probably do it more than others do it, because none of them are going to be the same. But there does seem to be a picking and a choosing of what is reported and what is not reported.
Oh, there totally
But
is.
The big issue, not so much with what is chosen and what is not chosen, is the reliability of what is chosen and what is not chosen. Sometimes you will get news chosen because it's unreliable, and a lot of opinion can be added to it, which makes it even more clickable than something that is cut and dry, that's more factual. Because if it's more cut and dry and it's more factual, and the facts have been presented, that's kind of it. That's the end of it. And it's like, well, there's no point in churning this story over and over and over again, because there's very little opinion that can be added to it, because it's very straight-laced, it's very factually based. And that in itself is an issue for media, because it's like, well, how many articles can we get out of this news story? Well, if we can get a dozen out, there's a dozen clicks on a dozen different articles. But if it's, this man did this, and there's video footage of it and it occurred, it's like, well, okay, well, once we've kind of reported it, we might be able to fluff 2 or 3 more stories out of it. But that's, once the facts are out there, there's not much more we can do. And the problem, well, not so much the problem, it's not whether it's a problem or not, we don't know, is we are what we used to do what we used to do is we used to, like we said earlier, we would check the veracity of the claims ourselves. We would go online, more fact checking would be done by the individual person reading the news article. So if you read something, you would go to the bottom of the article and you would click on the links to the sources and you would check the source material yourself. And that doesn't seem to happen these days. It's almost like the media themselves are like, we need to stop people fact checking themselves, because we'll write something, they'll fact check it, they'll be like, hang on, there's a mistake here, and here, and then the comments below the article would just be filled with people saying, you made an error here, this is factually incorrect, this is wrong, this is bad. So what they did was, well, what we'll do exactly what the financial institutions did. And this is what I think has happened, is the legacy media were like, okay, we'll do what the financial institutions. So there were the too big to fail banks, and they did everything. Everything they did was predicated on what the credit agencies did. Who created and who paid for the credit agencies? The financial institutions themselves. But it was like them deferring their responsibilities. Like, we're not going to decide what's AAA, AA, single A, triple B. So we'll let this group over here, but we're actually paying them. And the people that work for them used to work for us. And the legacy media is now doing that exact same thing with not just fact-checking agencies, but with poll agencies. It's like, okay, we won't conduct the poll, because if we conduct the poll, when we conducted polls during the 2008 and 2012, people are like, yeah, that's your poll, we don't trust your poll. That's your fact check, we don't trust your fact check. Why would we? Because we're picking faults in your polls, and we're picking faults in your in your facts. So what they did was, like the financial institutions decided, well, we'll create credit agencies. The legacy and the mainstream media have created polling agencies, new ones, not the older ones, but they've created polling agencies, and they've created fact-checking agencies, so they can say, hey, it's not us fact-checking it. These are independent. It's like, no, they're not. The same people that fund your media fund the fact checkers. You're just kind of saying, oh, well, they're deferring their responsibility. And that is part of the, that is becoming, that is now becoming part of the problem, because it's a big circle jerk. They're all funding each other. And we all know what happened in 2007 and 2008 with the credit rating agencies and the financial institutions. They kept on they bullshitted the entire world. These financial institutions gave AAA ratings to things that should never have been getting AAA rating, and the whole shagging thing collapsed. And we're finding that right now with fact-checking agencies, is the whole thing is collapsing in on itself and creating this split, this rift, where the left do their news stories, the right do their news stories, and the fact-checking agencies obfuscate the truth so that they can pick and choose. Oh, we'll give that story a AAA rating, and we'll give that story a AAA rating. But people then, dig into it and look into it, and they're like, well, actually, no, that shouldn't have a AAA rating. People shouldn't have faith and trust that AAA rated article. It should be like a B or a AA or a single A, because you've added a word out of context to create the illusion that it's a AAA story. And that goes back to exactly what you said earlier on, where they add the word mass. There is no mass fraud. Okay, so by removing that, by adding the word, it makes the headline correct. By removing the word, because it's an opinionated word, it's a subjective word, it makes the article completely and utterly different.
Yeah,
And,
what is your definition of widespread?
Exactly. What is your definition of mass fraud or widespread fraud?
Right. Does that mean all across the nation? It was in every state, or does that mean, half or all the states across the country, was a half the country, or either way, it was still a significant amount, and a lot of people see it, including those who voted for Biden. People are seeing that, and that's just not the narrative that wants to be pushed, though.
Yeah, I mean,
like you said, it's the same stuff they cried last time. Wasn't it also shown? Maybe I've got the details wrong. Wasn't it? Didn't it come out recently that Hillary Clinton actually like started that whole like, oh my God, it was Russia that interfered and not interfered. Gosh, I cannot talk this morning. Intervened and interfered. That's what happened. I confused intervened, but she started saying that Russia was the ones that intervened with the election, and that's why Trump won. The Obama administration, Obama directly knew this, that she started this rumor, and he didn't do anything about it. He allowed it to happen. And so there have been, again, something that just doesn't want to be reported because it doesn't fit the narrative. People, especially in the libertarian community, have been trying to say, hey, this has been shown to happen, but it's not getting touched on because, like I said, they're trying to say, well, you guys cheated. And then this whole crying wolf, well, no, you guys cheated, is proven to be false by the people that are cheating now. It's all mind games. It's all of it is just mind games.
There needs that. When we're talking about news, there's news and then there's opinion. News is objective.
Right.
Opinion is subjective. And the problem we have increasingly these days is there is no news. Everything seems to be opinion. So they'll take something subjective. So it's wrong to say, no, there was no fraud in this election. That's a factually incorrect statement because there is always fraud. And there was fraud in this election, and it's being investigated. Fraud has been investigated in every single other election, and fraud has always been found. It might be the tiniest amount of fraud, but it's still there. So it is objective to say that there is fraud in an election, but it's subjective to say there is no widespread fraud. That is an opinion.
Right.
And because it is extremely subjective. And it should not be the headline for a massive news outlet or a massive news publication to start off headlines that are not strictly relayed to the public as an opinion piece. So, it used to be in a newspaper, you would have the opinion section. And the opinion section is where people would go to read opinions on the news. But the majority of the paper would be the news. So you'd see a headline and it would be, man 31 kills woman in car accident. That's objective news. And then it would have, on such and such a day, on such and such a night, on such and such a road, the person who committed the crime was driving along this stretch of the road. And they were intoxicated because the police breathalyzed them and and it would be like fact, and all of those facts put together would be presented as a news article.
You're right. It's just the bare minimum facts right there, right in your face. You know what's going on. And I mean, there are tons of articles I read and I'm trying to just figure out the facts, and it's all just, it feels like when you're looking for a recipe online and you're like, oh, that looks good. And you click it and there's like 5 minutes of their freaking life story behind it because they're just shoving in when I was a little girl. And and it's like, I don't give a shit about why you decided to make this fucking recipe. Just give me the goddamn recipe, please. That is how most news articles feel now, because it's like, okay, so this little thing happened and here's how I feel about it. And then I guess this thing happened too. And here's how I feel about it. And it's all throughout the article, which should just be a quick little, here's what happened. Here's what's going on. Here are the facts kind of article. It's all opinions now. Yeah. Everyone's shoving in their, I don't want your fucking opinion. I can come up with my own goddamn opinion. Just give me the fucking facts so I can come up with my own fucking goddamn opinion.
Yeah. And it used to, and here's the thing. People do still want opinions. People do still want to read opinions. It's just that
Do it
10,
separately.
exactly. It's just that, 10, 15, 20, 30 and beyond, it used to be, here's the news. And then in the newspaper, here's the opinion section.
Right.
And the opinion section would be about current affairs, current events. So you would read the news and then you would go and read, oh, I like this journalist, or I like this person, or I think that this is a learned individual, or I think that this is I'd love to hear what their opinion on this story is, or what. And you would go and read those opinion pieces. And that's what the opinion section in the likes of the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the New York Post, the LA Times, the Guardian,
Right.
the Independent, that's what the opinion sections were for. But now everything, clickbait, click-wise and news article-wise, it's not the first thing that they're releasing isn't the news. The first thing that they're releasing is an opinion. And the first thing that they should always be releasing is an objective view of what happened. The news. Give us the news first, and then give us the opinion.
It's literally like, so here's the event, here's my opinions, here's another opinion, and then here's a little bit of the event that makes me think this opinion, and then here's more opinions. Like, no, just give me the bare minimum facts. I don't care what your opinion is.
Yeah.
It's just, gosh, it's honestly kind of just insulting. It's amazing how dumbed down they are considering the nation when you're not giving them the facts, the straight up facts, so they can just read them and determine their own opinions. Instead, you're telling them what to think because you think they're too dumb to come up with one themselves, or you're afraid they're going to come up with something that doesn't fit your narrative. So you're telling them what they should think according to yourself.
Yeah.
If you are a news journalist, don't do that shit. Give the news, let us come up with our own opinions. Because when you're just telling us, here's what I think you should think, and here are a couple little bits on why, because you're cherry picking facts from an event, then it's obvious you're not trying to educate us. You are not trying to let us be our own, free thinking people. You're afraid that maybe if we do that, we're going to find ways you are wrong and call you out on it. You don't want to be wrong. You want us to just simply agree with you and fit your narrative.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is.
It's that old adage: if you don't read the news, you're uninformed. If you do read the news, you're misinformed.
Right.
I think that there are times when the story doesn't fit a particular narrative, and these narratives are, I believe that it as far as I'm concerned, especially with regarding the media, is a lot of these narratives are predetermined by the powers that be, the higher ups, based on what they think is going to make them money, because the news organizations cannot exist if they don't have a certain influx of funds. So they're always going to be looking for that story that gives them the necessary, gives them the clicks, and it gives them the views, so that they can, make their money from their ad revenue. And I've always thought that. I really, really have always felt that, because money is what makes the world go round. Money is what makes the world go round. But then you get these instances where media organizations don't want competition. So, like a perfect example would be the news article that the New York Post put out about the emails, the Hunter Biden emails. Now, if that story had been given the widespread views and the widespread what's the word I'm looking for? Copy, maybe, that it should have, the New York Post would have been getting hundreds of thousands, if not millions, if not tens of millions of clicks. It would have bagged them a lot of money, and that money would have given them more ability to do more investigating and make more articles and create more news that would have got more millions of clicks and more tens of millions of views, and they would have made more money than their competitors. So you get the likes of CNN and MSNBC and social media outlets like Facebook and YouTube. It's like, well, we want to make that money. We want our stories to get the clicks, and we want our stories to get the views so that we make the ad revenue. We don't want them. So they ban it, they block it, they stop it from being spread, because there are on the same number of people are on social media, the same number of people are on Twitter, the same number of people read the news, but they want people reading their news, not the other news. So they'll put a ban on it. And a lot of people are like, oh, it was done for, it was done for political reasons.
And I do, and misinformation and
yeah, and to a certain degree, I would, to a certain extent, I would agree with that. But the swing side, the realist in me is thinking, well, but the simpler explanation is they don't want their competitor to read the articles that they're writing. They want the people to read their articles, because otherwise they're not going to make as much money. And those stories would have got they would have made so much money if they had been as widespread as CNN articles and MSNBC articles are made. And there's no doubt in my mind that there are platforms where that news article was spread. It just wasn't spread as far and as wide as if it had been shared on Facebook and on Twitter. And then you get the excuses coming out. I mean, Jack Dorsey himself said it was the reason why it was banned and the reason why it was blocked was because it broke guidelines on material that was hacked or elicited illegally. And it's like, well, that's not, that's a double standard. You've created a double.
Say he didn't have anything to do with that decision, and that he didn't. I thought I saw that he was trying to kind of cover his tracks there and be like, oh no, I didn't say that we should be blocking that article or whatever.
Jack Dorsey, with regards to that article, Jack Dorsey said that it was treated the way it was because of the policies regarding hacked material and illegally obtained material, which doesn't make any sense because they have allowed for the dissemination of news articles. I mean, when Trump's tax returns were released and the news article was made about the Trump, that is news, because a tax return is a document. It's a verifiable document that you can look at and go, person A paid tax amount B. That's new. There's nothing wrong. How the document was obtained, though, was through illegal means, because the only person authorized to release said document would have been Donald Trump, and Donald Trump did not release or allow for permission for that to release. So whoever obtained it through illegal. And don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting for 1 second that documents aren't newsworthy, whether they're obtained legally or illegally. I mean, I care not.
It's just a double standard.
Yeah, I care not whether something is legal or illegal. I care whether something is moral or immoral, or ethical or unethical. And I don't see anything immoral or unethical in posting in sharing that news, because I just don't. And people will say, "Oh, but it's not it's not your property. It's not this." And there is that's a separate debate, and that's a separate discussion to be had. But we all know within our community that just because something is illegal doesn't make it moral or ethical. We know this. This is fact. This is based in fact. Slavery was legal. We know it's immoral, unethical, and pure fucking evil. Human beings, weren't allowed to do things based purely on, traits that they had no control over. And when something is made illegal, Jim Crow laws, things like that. We know that things can be legal, but we also accept and know that certain things that are illegal are, not moral, not ethical, and they're just plain evil. So that's why I'm arguing. So that then goes to, Jack Dorsey saying we wouldn't allow this because A and B happened. Well, A and B also happened with that, but they didn't block it, they didn't stop it,
Right.
and they allowed it to go. So not only do you have duplicity, duplicity, but you've also got the double standard. And duplicity and double standards just makes it even worse. It really, really does. I mean, how can you trust an organization that says this happened and this happened, but we're going to let you see this, we're not going to let you see that, even though both news articles were written through the same actions. Information came to the journalist that wrote the article through maybe illegal means, maybe it was hacked, maybe it was given to the journalist without the permission. And we can say that, the laptop and the emails went to the journalist, and it went to the New York Post without Biden's express permission. And that occurred. He's not going to say, yeah, sure, you've got all of those emails of mine, and that's my laptop. Yep, go ahead, post it. If they came to him and said, we've got these emails of yours, and this is your laptop, and we've been able to verify that it's your laptop and these are your emails, do you mind if we write a news article about them? Of course he wouldn't give permission for it. It would be exactly the same with the people that wrote the article about Trump's tax returns. If they went to him and said, we've got a hold of your tax returns, do you mind if we write an... All of those people are going to say no. But one got discussed and talked about and written up and was given permission and spread far and wide, and it got the clicks. And people made money off that. And the other one was, that's going to make a lot of money for our competitors. We do not want that. I mean, Twitter and Facebook, they're just the medium. Mm-hmm. They're not going to make any money off it unless they slap their own ad on it themselves. But that's not how they make their, that's not how they make.
This is why I get more tinfoil hat in that regard when I just say it's because this is all just planned and there's a certain agenda, narrative, etc. that they're all trying to push. Blah blah blah.
The social. I would agree with you that the social media is what social media lets people read and not read is based partially on agenda, because what does get allowed and what does not get allowed is allowed or not allowed by individual human beings. Individual people have biases and they have agendas. When it comes to what the news media, that I think that's more of a money thing, because CNN is a competitor of the New York Post, and the New York Post is a competitor of the Wall Street. Those people are competing against each other. So they need to find things that they're going to get people to click with. The problem then occurs with the likes of Facebook and the likes of Twitter is they have an ideological slant, and they employ people to a large extent with ideological slants, and they'll pick and choose which media they want to make money. But it's not about whether they, so Twitter isn't thinking, I want CNN to make more money than the New York Post. That's what CNN and the New York Post are doing. They're competing with each other to write articles that they think are going to make them money. Twitter's looking at those two and going, well, we're more left-wing ideologically, so we want people to read the content of that article. They don't care whether they make money or not. They just want people to read that ideological slant. And they look at a New York Post article and go, well, that's not with our ideological slant. That's not with our ideological narrative. We don't want people to read that. Is there something in our terms and conditions? Is there something in our community guidelines that allows us to block it? And it's like, well, we could use this and just do it. And it's like, well, yeah, but what about those? What about when CNN breaches the? Oh, well, yeah, but we can call it. We can say it's a mistake, or oh, yeah, sorry. Like when they ban someone and go, oh, they were banned by mistake. It's like, no, somebody, a human being in control of dropping the ban hammer, dropped the ban hammer on that dropped the ban hammer on that person, giving the levels of people above that one individual person plausible deniability. So when a good example is when Tim Pool and the Twitter guy Jack Dorsey were on Joe Rogan's podcast. Tim was asking him directly, so why was this person banned? Oh, they were banned. Oh, that was a mistake. And it's like he's being told it was a mistake. Now, he has the plausible deniability. He can say, honestly, because he was told, oh, it was a mistake. But between him and the person that banned them, there are like 5 people. So that person, oh, I didn't like what they were saying, so I banned them. Goes to their supervisor. Well, they banned them because they didn't like it. Goes to the next person. Well, they kind of didn't like what they posted, so they banned them. Goes to the next person. Oh, yeah, they broke the community guide. So there's going to be one person in that tier of in that hierarchy where it changes from they didn't like what they said, so they banned them, or they blocked the story, to, oh, they broke community guidelines. And then the next 3 tiers, and then it gets to Jack Dorsey. Oh, yeah, a mistake was made. Oh, great, just reverse it. And that's the problem that you've got with Twitter and Facebook. So yes, that's Facebook and that's Twitter, and there's just so many things, and it's all about, there is an information overload. There's an information overload going on right now, and the split in the middle really, really, really doesn't help. It really doesn't help, and it doesn't help when people are being so. Bipolar is not really the word. So rigid in their, I'm on this side and everything that the other side says is wrong or misinformation or misinforming. And that in itself is misinformation. You know, saying here's 4 articles, and the body of each of these 4 articles is 100% true, but I'm going to call it misinformation because it's making you look at that, and it's not making you look at what I want you to see. So you know, terms thrown around like misinformed and misinformation and fake news. I mean, you said it earlier. People looking at satire like The Onion and the Babylon Bee and going, it's fake news. It's like, no, it's not. It's called satire. It is satirical. It's not news.
Oh no, I was talking about people who were sharing them as if they were real news.
Yeah,
like they were legit just saying, because that's a big part of it, is just the clickbaity articles themselves. Because we can say all we want, well, these, you know, mainstream medias, these online, you know, Twitter, Facebook, etc., or the news sources themselves, whatever, they all have a narrative, an agenda, but I mean, so does the average person. So the average person is going to be more likely to just spread and share stuff that fits their own narrative. And a lot of people do not read the articles or fact check before they share stuff. So they will find any article that has a title that leads that sounds, you know, alarming, and it sounds like it fits a point that they've been trying to prove. So they share it without checking if it's true, without checking if the article is even really matches the title very much. Like, all right, so here's a kind of a weird example. I'm going to pull it up here real quick. I've got on my phone right here. So my phone likes to give me these different articles based on stuff it thinks I'll like, I guess. So, I mean, like today we've got stuff about why did trilobites go extinct? And Tucson homeschooling stuff, cocktail stuff, and this one that they've been showing me for like a damn week at this point, at least. All these articles on this giant asteroid that may or may not be hitting Earth in 2068. And so I guess this asteroid was originally discovered in, I believe, 2004. And when they discovered it, they acknowledged it was huge. I guess it's like the size of the Eiffel Tower, and that could definitely cause a very massive impact on the Earth if it were to hit. And so originally when they found it, they're like, okay, it's close, but it's not going to be close enough to hit us. They did not take into account, I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but there's like this effect where, like, as the asteroid heats up in the atmosphere, or just flying around, you know, as it gets hotter and hotter, that will kind of like sort of like reshape the asteroid, and that will cause it to shift its path a little bit. And that shift has been making it closer to Earth over time. Okay. So I've been getting articles on this asteroid every single day on my phone for over a week now, from different, today's source was CNET. Then that was posted a day ago. And the articles are things like, we might get hit in 2068 and we can't rule out, human extinction by then, all kinds of stuff. And you click the article and basically it tells you the exact same thing that I just said about the effect causing the path change. And really what it is there's pretty much no chance of it happening. We still are at like, yeah, there's no chance, but scientists technically can no longer say there's no chance because of that shift. So now the information that they released years ago is no longer technically factually correct. So now they can no longer just downright say, yeah, there's no chance, because it's shifted a little bit, even though there really isn't a chance. It's just, well, we can't stick with that claim based on the information we released years ago. So all these titles are going, oh my God, asteroid 2068, we're all going to die in the titles, which is how you're going to get it spread more and more. But then if you read it, all of them are just like, technically it's not going to happen. We just can't say it's not going to happen. That's really the only difference. They just cannot technically say it won't, because now the information has changed. That's it. But of course, people are going to see that and they're going to go, oh my God, asteroid. And they're just going to share it everywhere without actually reading it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you have to do is slap on a really intimidating, exciting article title, and it'll just spread like wildfire.
The title, I mean, I must admit, I'm like, I've read articles where the title is so subjectively exciting. It's like, oh, okay, I'll read this, and I've read it, and it's boring, and I'm like, I get through the first paragraph, and it's like, yeah, I don't want to read this, but bravo, well done.
They got their click.
You got my click, and I saw the ad at the start, and no, I don't want 15% off my car insurance, but hey, you got me to read the ad, 15% off my car insurance if I switch to Geico. The article was dumb, but I'm sure Geico is now happy that I've seen their ad, even though I'm not going to switch to them. But yeah, you will get that. I must admit, when I read articles like that, things like that, and it's like, oh, this asteroid it could hit, and it's like, so what's its trajectory? I always think to myself that there are astrophysicists probably reading that article going, oh my God, what is this doing in a news article? Because they're like, if it's not going to hit for another 40 years, then it's something that we can avoid. And if it's something that we can avoid and it's something that we can plan for, then it's not really news.
And that's what the article is saying, is that they have, like, basically they're not going to have an exact statistical number for several years, but by then they'll have they currently have people working on a game plan to either deflect the asteroid or something on Armageddon style. I don't know, send Bruce Willis up there and let him take it out, I guess. And so by then it should not be a threat. Even if it were to come a little too close to Earth, they already have some kind of plan to deflect it. But that's not what's exciting. What's exciting is, oh my God, giant meteor 2020, and people sharing that like crazy. And then people click and then they get bored because, like you said, it's really not that detrimental or exciting. They get let down. They stop. That we're not all going to die. They stop reading, but the site still got their click.
Yeah, no. I must admit, I've had the an asteroids going to Earth argument, because I had it with friends in, I think it was 1998 when Armageddon was released, and it's like, the movie ends, and we're like, and I was like, what? Why would you waste your time drilling to the middle of it and then blowing it up? Just put a couple of rockets on the side of it and fire the rockets off, because all you need is to move it away by a tiny degree, far enough away so that it misses the Earth. And it's like, and they're like, well, yeah, but that's kind of like boring from a movie point of view. They've got to blow it up from the inside, because there's so much that can go wrong drilling into an asteroid and blowing it up.
That will kill us instead.
Exactly. Oh, well, we'll just land on the side of it, and we'll point the rockets away from it, and we'll just fire the rockets off, and it'll move out of the way in time. It's like, well, yeah, but Who wants to see Bruce Willis fly to an asteroid, park a rocket, and just fire it and then fly back? That's not entertainment.
Depending on the size of the asteroid, I think that may or may not work, because it's not necessarily enough just to have something push it. You kind of have to have like an impact force.
It depends.
Just because of the way gravity is. So you really have to have like multiple rockets, I would think.
It would depend.
Actually actively like hit it.
It would depend on the mass of the asteroid and the speed.
I'm just kind of going through, this is
traveling.
like a giant effing meteor, so I'm thinking that might not have been as easy if this was like a giant effing meteor. But then again, if I mean, they had to like drill through it, so I don't know, maybe there's a lot of mass, not a whole lot of holes to crawl through. I don't know.
Yeah, because I mean, if two people were in the vacuum of space and they were going along like that, and then they both pushed against each other, so they're moving in this direction and they both pushed against each other, they would do that.
Right. They would. So you have to
because their mass.
But that's what I'm saying. You'd have to push as opposed to having like a rocket on your back or something.
Yeah,
that might not
them
be
simply.
You have to like physically.
But they're moving at a much slower speed. They're weightless. That you know, I mean, the you know, an asteroid would be weightless, but you've still got to take into consideration its velocity. You know, its mass and its velocity. So, you know, if an asteroid is going at 22,000 miles an hour, you know, it's going to take, you know, something quite considerable and at something quite a distance. But think about if it was, you know, 100 kilometers away from Earth, the force required and the rockets on it required to push it out of the way would need to be considerable compared to if something was a light year away. If it was a light year away heading towards the Earth, you would probably only need one rocket on it to fire.
Yeah,
and by the time it's
light shift.
Exactly, that 0.000000001 degree change a light year away.
Yeah, over time that's gonna make all the difference. Yeah. Which is why I'm thinking maybe just like pushing it out of the way or something like that. In Armageddon, that might have been a little more difficult. So, I mean, I guess just in that regard, but in general, if it's really far away and we have time, then that could work better.
There's the thing. So the article that you just brought up is probably complete and utter bullcrap. But the fact
all of them, there've been so many of them
just made us talk about it for 10 minutes. It may, you know, it amuses. So there is some tiny benefit from it. You know, there is some tiny benefit from something bad that produced 10 minutes of something good. It's a bit like I always like the argument that, you know, heroin is really bad and people really shouldn't take it, like, ever, because it's a very nasty, destructive drug. But then somebody will go, well, yeah, but if we didn't have heroin and if people didn't take it, we wouldn't have the beautiful song Bohemian Rhapsody by Freddie Mercury, because he wrote that when he was high on heroin. And it's like, you know, okay, that's a razor thin argument it's a razor thin argument for heroin being good, but you've got to accept the point that if heroin didn't exist then he would never have created that.
I would survive without the song, to be honest.
I think
kind of overplayed. It's a little okay. We got that one Wayne's World scene that was fun.
We could all agree that, you know, we can agree that, you know, we could live without Bohemian Rhapsody for the sake of the lives of literally millions of people that have you know,
I was gonna say
suffered.
there's people who can't live without heroin now.
Yeah,
they're that addicted.
So anyway, we've been. I think we tangented off from our media discussion.
That's okay though. We can't be serious all the time.
No, we can't be serious all the time. But I think we should definitely talk about the new merch. I think we should.
All right. There's not a whole ton just yet. I'm kind of bouncing some ideas here and there. I'm thinking maybe we might do a cafe press soon. Not that it's like super duper. Oh my god, I can't talk at all today. What the hell is super duper? Oh my god, I need to go back to bed. But not that it's super duper profitable. There we go. But it's something, and I guess it's advertisement if someone buys something, you know. And with that said, I have a very kind, generous friend who has made a bunch of decals that we will be offering as well. And that should be in the pretty near future, actually. They're I believe they're all printed now. I believe they're all cut and printed now. And they are of the logo that you guys are seeing currently. So yay. Yeah, so just kind of taking baby steps.
I'll show the merch that I've got here. This.
Oh yeah, show off your thing. Whoa.
This is going to be yeah, the green screen. The green screen is messing with it. The green screen is messing with it. So as you can see, it's about the size of my face. About the size of my face.
Yeah.
But obviously we have a yellow red letter and a yellow. I'm showing you the yellow one. There will also be red ones available as well, made out of yarn pom poms.
For those who can't see. I'm gonna say for those who can't see it because they're not.
For those of you who can't see it, imagine the logo, the red letter and the yellow letters A. Now imagine those letters as, I suppose you could call it something that a dream catcher. Think of a dream catcher, but made purely of pom poms, wool yarn pom poms that are in the exact shape as our red and yellow letter A's. So these will, those will be very available. Those will be available as merch from the show, but they'll just be on. I mean, they'll be sent from the person that makes them, but they will be available on Harley's Etsy.
Yeah.
We're just going to keep it simple and not make a separate merch shop. So the decals that she's just talked about, and the red letter and the yellow letter logos for the show will be available very, very soon on Harley's Etsy. I mean, the beauty with these things is they will be available made, and they're also going to be available as a kit. So you'll get a bag with pom poms and the wire, and you can make it yourself if you want.
Make them stocking stuffers and start teaching your little children the art of the anarchy.
Teaching them arts and crafts. And
Santa's got a little edgy this year.
Yeah. So there's that. So we've got new things, and we'll be looking at whether or not we can do the decals on t-shirts and stuff like that. One of the thoughts that did occur to me was I could actually probably we could probably do something like this, like the Dreamcatcher that the people listening can't see. It might actually be possible to put that on a t-shirt. So if you don't want something hanging like a Dreamcatcher, we might even be able to get it onto a t-shirt. But that's
we'll figure it out. It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. Yeah. Anything to make a little bit of extra pocket money, eh, Harley?
I should probably do the sponsored ads thing on Anchor finally. I haven't got around to setting that up.
Yeah, definitely want to sign, because take advantage of this wonderful English accent, because for some reason you like to use English people in your commercials over here.
Remember when the Geico Gecko used to be Australian, and then he was no longer Australian?
I've only ever known the.
Oh my gosh, he was Australian for the longest time, and then they changed him to like English, and I'm like, okay. That seems a little odd to do, but all right.
Right, anyway, okay, so thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. I'll finish with the usual spiel. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Come back for more. And if you've got anything funny, interesting, amusing, or entertaining to say about what we've discussed today, throw it down in the comments below. So, over to you, Harley.
I think I'm going to put up a poll. I think I'm going to put up a little poll on our Twitter page.
Okay.
Because, I asked who actually reads the newspaper anymore. Like, that's what I'm going to ask. Who actually sits there and physically reads a newspaper anymore? Like, I'm sure, like, some of y'all got grandparents that do it or something, but, like, is that generally a thing? I legitimately don't think I know anybody who actually does it anymore. So that's going to be the poll. Look on the official Twitter for the Red Letter, Yellow Letter podcast and respond to that. Share it. Why not?
Excellent. Okay. Say bye-bye, Harley.
Bye.
Toodles, everyone.